Hello students, welcome to today's video lesson where we shall discuss the poem A Roadside Stand by Robert Frost. I'm sure all of you must have noticed roadside vendors who put up small shops at the sides of the roads at various places. They sell very regular perishable edibles like fruits, vegetables or locally found berries. How often do you pay attention to them or buy from them? Even if we do buy from street side vendors, we often end up bargaining. People do not bargain when they visit shopping malls or other shopping places, but find the need to haggle with these people who are not at all prosperous. Robert Frost's poem, A Roadside Stand, is a poem that presents the divide between the city people and the countryside vendors. Let us read a little about Frost before we proceed further with the poem.
The little old house was out with a little new shed in front at the edge of the road where the traffic sped. A roadside stand that too pathetically pled. It would not be fair to say for a dole of bread, but for some of the money, the cash, whose flow supports the flower of cities from sinking and withering faint.
The people living in the little old house by the streets had extended their house onto the road with a little shed to create a small space for a roadside stand. These small vendors were not beggars. Although it seemed like they desperately wanted to earn some money, they wanted to do so by partaking in an honest exchange system of goods for money. The roadside stand was put up by poor people who could do with a very small part of the cash flow system that kept the entire city prosperous. Thus, these shacks seemed to plead with the passers-by to stop and buy from the shack. Notice the several poetic devices in this stanza. First, we have the alliteration pathetically pled. An alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds in close succession. Pathetically pled is also a personification of the roadside stand that is given the human attribute of being able to plead. Next, we have a metaphor, flower of cities. A metaphor is a figure of speech in which something is considered representative or symbolic of something else. Here, the prosperity of city life is compared to a blooming flower, and thus we have the metaphorical representation of flower of cities. Moving on with the poem, let us read the next lines.
The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, or, if ever aside a moment, then out of sorts, at having the landscape marred with the artless paint of signs that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong, offered for sale wild berries in wooden quarts, or crook-necked golden squash with silver warts, or beauty rest in a beautiful mountain scene. You have the money, but if you want to be mean, why keep your money this crossly and go along?
Notice the poetic device of a transferred epithet in the first line where the polished and proper city people are referred to by the use of the term polished traffic. It is not the traffic that is polished, but the sophisticated people who drive the vehicles that create the traffic. The city people drive past these roadside stands in a hurry. They are in a hurry to move ahead in life and earn more wealth. However, when sometimes these cars stop, they do it to express their disappointments.
The rich city people complain of how the roadside stands disrupt the natural beauty with their untidy ugliness. They are also disturbed to see the toppled letters and misdirected signboards at these stands. Moreover, these roadside stands do not sell the perfect products unlike the city supermarkets. The local produce is perishable and imperfect, as the poet describes them as crook-necked golden squash with silver warts.
Annoyed at the callous attitude of the city people, the poet asks them to move along and keep their money to themselves. It is a commonplace thing to see wealthy people having extremely insensitive attitudes towards economically backward people like street vendors and local shack owners. Let us now move on to the next lines.
The hurt to the scenery wouldn't be my complaint, so much as the trusting sorrow of what is unsaid. Here, far from the city, we make our roadside stand, and ask for some city money to feel in hand, to try if it will not make our being expand, and give us the life of the moving pictures promise that the party in power is said to be keeping from us.
The poet is not concerned about these roadside stands disrupting the picturesque view of the landscape. Voicing the opinions of several such roadside stand owners, the poet says that these people try to earn a livelihood far from the city through these stands. They desire to earn some of the money which is a part of the city's prosperous economic system. They too want to be alleviated to a better situation in life, something which the ruling government is not allowing them. Now, the next stanza of the poem.
It is in the news that all these pitiful kin are to be bought out and mercifully gathered in, to live in villages next to the theatre and the store, where they won't have to think for themselves anymore. While greedy, good doers, beneficent beasts of prey swarm over their lives enforcing benefits that are calculated to soothe them out of their wits, and by teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day. Destroy their sleeping at night the ancient way.
Soon, the news spreads that the government has ordered for the evacuation and reallocation of these countryside people from their original homes to places closer to the theatre and the store. Students, this is a very prevalent practice in our society. People, mostly belonging to the lower rungs of society, are displaced from their homes, given hopes of a better future as the government claim their lands to build high-rise buildings and malls for profit. Even in your own cities, you must have seen hawkers displaced to a common market to tidy up streets.
The poet angrily points out how these officials or government authorities are greedy good doers or beneficent beasts of prey that do not pay attention to the plight of the people but only have the motive of personal profit in mind. They selfishly exploit the village people by giving them short-term sense of security. These government or civic authorities implement shrewd, calculative measures that are beyond the understanding of simple village folk. Thus, they are silenced and are assured a good life. However, soon they lose sleep at night as they have no work and no way of earning a livelihood.
This stanza is replete with several poetic devices. Let us discuss them. First, we have two alliterations, greedy good doers and beneficent beasts. These are also examples of the poetic device oxymoron, in which apparently contradictory terms appear in conjunction. Next, we have the metaphor swarm over their lives. Here, the movement of bees is used to compare the activities of the civic authorities. There is also a repetition in the line, and by teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day. Moving on with the poem.
Sometimes I feel myself I can hardly bear the thought of so much childish longing in vain. The sadness that lurks near the open window there, that waits all day in almost open prayer. For the squeal of brakes, the sound of a stopping car, of all the 1,000 selfish cars that pass, just one to inquire what a farmer's prices are. The poet is grieved and can hardly bear the wasted childlike longing in the eyes of the roadside stand owners. Their all-day long wait is like a silent prayer, hoping that some driver will stop at the stand and make a purchase. However, almost all the cars pass selfishly in a rush.
Notice the personification in the line, the sadness that lurks. We also have an onomatopoeia, squeal of brakes. Onomatopoeia is a poetic device in which a word imitates the original sound of a thing. Here, the car's coming to a stop after the car is braked is onomatopoeically expressed through the use of squeal of brakes. Moving on.
And one did stop, but only to plough up grass, in using the yard to back and turn around, and another to ask the way to where it was bound, and another to ask, could they sell it a gallon of gas? They couldn't, this crossly. They had none, didn't it see?
If a car stopped at all, it is either to use their backyard for turning the car or to get some gas. Some stopped to ask for road directions, another to inquire if they could sell gas for their car. The poet is annoyed at the rich man's ignorance of how the poor man does not have any gas to sell him. This stanza is a satire on how unaware and ignorant city people are, that they do not understand the glaring differences in the life of the villagers and their own.
No, in country money, the country scale of gain, the requisite lift of spirit has never been found, or so the voice of the country seems to complain. I can't help owning the great relief it would be to put these people at one stroke out of their pain. And then, next day, as I come back into the sane, I wonder how I should like you to come to me and offer to put me gently out of my pain.
The villagers complain of how the prosperity of wealth and money have never been a part of village life. Their spirits are forever dampened by the lack of resources in their lives. The poet is overwhelmed and contemplates putting an end to their pain in one blow. The next day, when he is brought back to his own senses and his overwhelming emotional upheaval subsides, he wonders how he would like to be put out of his own pain by someone else. Notice the personification in this stanza, voice of the country, where the country has been personified and given the human attribute of having a voice. It is used to express the opinion of the village folks. With that, we come to the end of this deep, painful and satirical poem by Frost, where he highlights the differences in the living standards of the villagers and the city dwellers. He is also critical of the way the city dwellers are ignorant of this divide or gap. We hope you learn to look at your surroundings in a way that is more sensitive and aware and find more measures to help those in need. With that, we come to the end of today's video lesson. We hope this helps you in your revision work. See you soon.